Welcome back to 8 Spotlight, the podcast brought to you by 8 Capital. This is where we go portfolio company by portfolio company, founder by founder, and bring you the people building what's next. Today, we're joined by Shoya Matsumori, founder of Jinba, a company building a new way for enterprises to automate workflows using AI. Jinba is an enterprise AI workflow platform that lets teams build and deploy complex workflows simply by describing them in plain language. No engineers required. Already used by tens of thousands of enterprise users, Jinba is focused on bringing automation to highly regulated industries like banking, insurance, and beyond. Shoya, so happy to have you here.
Hi, Samantha. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, so Shoya, you have a PhD in computer
hmm
science, which is
Right.
impressive. How
Thank you.
did your background lead you to building Jinba?
Yeah. So just a bit of my background. So I did my PhD in machine learning. I was working on a field called vision and language. So it's a mixture of computer vision and natural language processing. I was specifically working on like image generation in multi-turn settings. Like nowadays, people can, say something. I want to build a wallpaper for like this scene, and you can generate images, right? And you can also like, improve it over the course of the conversation. So I was like working on that kind of model even before ChatGPT, and um that was 2022. I graduated, I took PhD, and then I started this company because I was always kind of looking for something that is exciting. Doing startup is like one of the things that I wanted to build, and I kind of knew about this area in a technological perspective, so I thought it was a good, interesting area to explore.
Very cool.
Yeah,
What initially drew you to the problem of enterprise workflows and automation?
right. So actually, I started building this product because I I was kind of like very how do I say it? No code, low code automation. So the
Mhm.
interesting thing about no code low code tools is you can technically like empower non-technical, semi-technical people to build something, right? And I really like myself as a software engineer or like, developer, I really like the moment that I build something for someone. And no code low code tools are interesting because you can technically let like non-technical, semi-technical people to enjoy the joy of building, right? So that's the reason I kind of started exploring this area, and we actually started building product 2024, and initially started working on drag and drop style tool, but then like we kind of hit the scalability limit because drag and drop tools are like, for example, Zapier, NAN, at first glance, they're like pretty easy to use, right? Oh, this is like, for like non-technical people, like you can drag and drop and connect. It's like very easy. But in reality, like I asked a couple people or like my colleagues to use those like no-code local tool, and it was actually very hard. Like people would often, got into like some like hurdles, and they just cannot like proceed further. So I was like wondering if there's like any alternative solution to drag and drop. Then like we like 2025 generally, vibe coding came out, like Lovable, Bolt, those kind of like tools. Like even like my cousin was using it, and he built the like website, and I was like so surprised, like, even like non-technical people can actually build something. So we started thinking like maybe like we can combine like NAN with Lovable,
Mm.
and that's the reason why we kind of started exploring the current like way of like, platform.
So, why focus specifically on large regulated organizations?
Yeah, good question. Wasn't actually intentional, to be honest. Yeah. So we were initially building it like in such a horizontal way. So we're more of like a bottoms up approach. We were trying to build community around our platform, like having a bunch of templates, like, connectors. It's more of like a Zapier NAN style. And yeah, we're basically like doing it in that way. So we're also like, we're thinking about like open sourcing our product.
Okay.
But yeah, we launched our product like mid 2025, and kind of went viral, and because we're kind of building community, and a couple of like enterprises reach out to us, and one of them was the very big bank in Japan. And yeah, they pretty like us. Like we ended up doing pilot, and now the bank is like one of our biggest customers. And so they're I mean they're big. So like we were like thinking, oh, it might be like a huge opportunity in like those regulated space. We did pilot with them, and there are like a lot of stuff that we need to handle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
So enterprises have been
Mhm,
trying to automate workflows for years.
mhm, mhm.
What's fundamentally not working today with that?
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. So one of our enterprise clients, they're basically saying that we try like building like RAG pipelines. It's a very simple RAG pipeline. Check, whether the document is compliant or not. They had to connect to their internal databases, and they actually build it. And they spend, I guess, like 3 months, like 300K US dollar just to build a pipeline, and they couldn't make it to production environment. They were just like it's not possible. And the reason was the scalability and like security and compliance and those kind of stuff, because you know it's not very hard to build RAG pipeline, but for them, like when it comes to ship it to production environment, like for example, they have to provide the functionality to like tens of thousands of users, like employees, and they need to think about permissions, like who can use this like tool, who can access these files, those kind of stuff, where it's very complicated. And like for them, like they kind of realize this is like not efficient, like not cost efficient. So I mean, we build a prototype, but we're not going to ship it. So that was like kind of happening in a lot of like regulated enterprises. And yeah, so that's probably the biggest problem that they have.
So, what are the biggest bottlenecks? Engineering
Mhm,
resources, cost,
mhm.
compliance.
I think one of the biggest problems, yeah, could be engineering resources. Yeah, those like large enterprises, they're always like saying we're kind of lacking internal resources because they already have like a big internal system like ERP and like transaction systems and those kind of stuffs. And when it comes to like start like new like AI automation project, they always like lack resources. I often see people like, in the bank, they're like outsourcing to system integrators, right? And then they ask them to like build something for them, but it's very actually like it's cost inefficient because like system integrators, I mean, some of them are like knowledgeable about banking industry, but like, you need to do like a lot of knowledge transfer, and it's obviously like not really cost efficient.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so moving on to your product, Jinba allows teams to build workflows by just chatting. So, how does that actually work?
Yeah. So essentially, like you can think about like NAN meets lovable. So you can say like I want to, for example, every time I finish the meeting recording, transcribe everything, and then like send a summary to Slack. If you type something in, like, and then like you hit enter and wait for a while, AI agent would generate the YAML manifest. So YAML manifest is like the definition of our workflow. It's kind of similar to GitHub Actions, and you can also see the graph representations of the of the workflow. An interesting part is it's kind of two sides of coin. And whenever you edit something on the YAML file, you can see the changes on the graph representation. You can also click on the node, and you can like, there is like a modal, and you can select the parameters like with GUI. And if you change something, you'll also apply to YAML file. So yeah.
How is this different from traditional no code and drag and drop tools?
hmm hmm Traditional no code local tools, you actually need to figure out like the settings by yourself. Like imagine like, oh, this like workflow, the output of LLM is not like, it's not very polished. So I want to change the model to the latest model. But the thing is, like, you need to click the node and you need to figure out the settings by yourself. And if you just need to dive into like very detail, right? So user actually has to have like a mental model of like those settings, like which settings belong to which panel, like X, Y, and Z. So in our platform, you don't really have to think about that. Like just ask, hey, like I want to change this to like latest, version of the model, and like AI will just like go through the settings like automatically and it'll change the settings. Yes. And that's actually like a very, huge jump.
So understanding is that you can be even less technical than before.
Less technical than before. And also we're like more on the vibe coding stack. So it's something similar to Claude Code. Users can like ask, hey, like I want to build this, and our AI agent would run the workflow automatically and it will debug workflow automatically. So, I mean, also the hardest part, one of the hardest parts of like building workflow is actually like handling errors. And nowadays, like, if you're writing Python code by Claude Code, it will just like iterate, like improve by itself, right? So we also have similar kind of feature for our platform, and which is quite like powerful.
How would you differentiate yourself from Claude Code?
Yes. So I think the important part is like security and guardrails. When you think about like Claude Code, I mean, it's obviously for like, technical user, but it's like super powerful and it can do like whatever they want. So a lot of people think like, oh, why don't just like people in enterprise like use Claude Code for development, right? Like it's way easier and it's also like, it's very powerful. Some part I agree, like, I mean, for technical users like, me, like I can just build something by myself. Like, but the reality is like if you work at like bank or like insurance in like industry, you cannot vibe code something and you cannot like ship it to production one stop. You really need to think about like if the vibe coded like implementation is secure or not. Like, is it actually working well? Is it actually meeting expectations? Like data and compliance and whatnot. So we intentionally implemented some sort of like limitations over what users can actually vibe code on our platform. For example, I explained like we're using YAML file, right? So it's not technically like a Python code or TypeScript code. It's essentially like a combination of pre-existing modules. So it's not something you can write from scratch. And we intentionally gave a limitation because like if people can vibe code something from scratch, it's very hard for other people to verify if it is safe or not, right? So YAML file is like one of the guardrails like we have. And we also have, we can publish our workflow, but we also have like a fine-grained permission settings. So we can like integrate with their internal AD system and then like figure out like whether this workflow can be shipped to like department X or department Y, something like that. So if you use Claude Code, you also need to do it by yourself. So that's kind of like a, like huge differentiator between Claude Code and us.
What's the most interesting way you've seen someone use Jinba?
One of the interesting use cases that I saw was, so one of our customers, she was working on the investment research, and she was like essentially like creating a port in like PowerPoint format. She had to like create like couple of like slides for like, startups, and like doing a research, like when you say something like, oh, what's the like startups, like what are the startups that raised like past couple weeks in biotech industry or whatever. So she automated that workflow using Jinba. And I was like specifically surprised because the output quality was very good, like especially like a slide. The design was like very good. It was like super polished, and I was like surprised because that was made by combination of like Claude, like Opus 4.7, and also like Python code. So it's like previously like when you create like pitch decks, Like you have to rely on like Gamma or like specific like API endpoints that are specialized in like PowerPoint generation. But nowadays, like most of stuff could be built with the combination of existing modules and also integrations, right? So I feel like I kind of see the potential of our product. Like you can like create like very complex stuff with the very simple like combination of the modules.
So, one of the things that I've been hearing most in this conversation is the emphasis
Mhm,
on compliance and guardrails and how
mhm,
that's built into Jinba.
mhm.
So, how do you think about balancing speed of building with compliance and governance?
Right. That's honestly we're figuring out right now. And the current like speed of technological advancement is like very, very fast. It's super fast. I think even for startup, you kind of need to figure out like whether to adopt like this library or that library because like every single week like we see a lot of like new libraries coming. If we like adopt like a specific technology and then like wait for like couple months, like sometimes you'll get outdated like and will regret like adopting that like tech stack. So the same thing will also happen for like banking and those like regulated industry. If they build something like very quickly, like you actually like regret it because it's actually like it's gonna be outdated. So it's actually kind of good for banking industry to think about compliances, and they spend a lot of time because the technology adoption is actually like, how do I say it? Like it's like 5-6 months like later than the cutting edge like field. So doing like those like 5 to 6 months, like you can actually think about whether to actually adopt like this type of technology. For example, like MCPs, like people are actually skeptical when it came out, right? But bank has those like industries actually have a room to think about whether to adopt those technologies. So it's not essentially a bad thing to get lagged behind of like those technologies.
So, one of the things that Jinba boasts is use cases like
Mhm,
loan screening, KYC, compliance checks.
mhm.
Why are these especially well suited for automation?
Right. I think the reason is like there are a lot of documents, a lot of like varieties that they need to check. I especially um work with the commercial bank, and I was like so surprised. Like there are like a lot of bankers, like well paid. They're like super talented. But they had to work on like very weird like job. It's like checking numbers one by one, just copying like, numbers to different Excel sheet one by one, like copy and paste. And I was like, and I talked to like those people, and those people are like really smart, and like it's kind of crazy to see like people like working on that kind of stuff. So yeah, but it kind of makes sense because banking industry is like such a regulated industry. They're like their entire value is like trust, right? So they are like super process focused. They want to follow every single right process, and they don't want to mess up thing. The process is well documented. They have like a certain procedure, and they have a very detailed documentation for that. So it's actually very suitable for like AI agents and AI because they're already like a rule in like natural language, right? So we can essentially like, you know, um, collect those like rules, and then like we can turn it into like workflows. We can like utilize AI agents to like actually follow the rules. Yeah, that's the reason why like those areas is like very like suitable for AI automation.
What happens to teams when these repetitive processes are automated?
Right. I think the benefit is they can work on more creative stuff since like a lot of their work have been distracted by paperwork and those kind of like, I won't say it's like less important, but it's not for like people who are talented like that. But once like they don't really have to work for those like tasks, they can like focus on, I don't know, like for probably like talking to new customers, figuring out like new strategy for like upselling your product. Essentially, like you can like focus on like more like future stuff, right? So I think that's the huge benefit you can gain from automation.
Why is explainability so important in enterprise AI workflows?
When you think about like running AI workflows, it has to be like very predictable. And if the workflow is like not deterministic every single time, like agent will decide by itself, but sometimes it leads to different direction or different conclusion. It's very hard to predict because essentially like LLMs, like stochastic like machine, they're like kind of looking for predictability in this industry. Yeah.
So Jinba is already being used by tens of thousands of enterprise users.
Mhm.
What's driving that adoption?
Think like first of all, it's very easy to build whenever you actually like want something, you can just build it and then ship it like pretty instantly. It's like a one click. And secondly is we have a lot of integrations for those financial industries. So like loan assessment, if they want to build something in loan assessment, like we have templates. So they can just like ship it instantly versus like other platforms, like people have to build from scratch. So it takes time to actually like building something useful. When it comes to like automation, like you always think about the cost of building an actual like outcome, right? If the cost of building is like, the smaller than like the outcome, you want to build it, right? So you constantly like need to like feel, oh, this is like easy to build, like we can ship it like instantly, and the outcome is very huge. Users want to like use it a lot. Like previous like no code local tools are actually different. Like people think that, oh, this tool can build whatever I want. And if you try it, you realize, oh, this is very hard. I can't use it. And people just stop using it. So I think that part is like very, very different in our platform. And that's the reason why people use it, like, over and over.
What's the long-term vision for Jinba as a company?
Yeah. So we are essentially aiming to be an operating system for financial industries. So whenever people want to build something, we have Jinba, and whenever people want to invoke AI agents, we have Jinba, and we're just like keep building those useful tools for banking and insurance.
So, do you see a future where most internal processes are built and maintained without engineers?
Yes, and partially no. I
Okay.
think most of the crucial work still engineers have to maintain and build it. For example, like connectors, database access, those part are critical. And however, most of the business process automation part, I think it's gonna be like less reliant on engineers because business people working on, you know, that project or like, yeah, that specific work know a lot about the bottlenecks and like processes and maybe like hidden rules. So they can like explain problem of their like efficiency and they can also evaluate the result. So it's like way faster if the implementation part like could be done by others like AI agents and they can just explain something and build something by themselves.
So, right now, the traditional cycle of building takes weeks, months. What is your goal for the timeline that workflows take?
Like to build workflows, right? Right. I think right now, like it takes, not right now, but maybe like previously, like even half a year ago, it took 3 to 4 months to actually build and ship something to production environment. I think even more, maybe like 6 months in the back. But we were aiming 2 weeks, ideally. There are a lot of stuff that we need to take care of because when it comes to shipping workflow to production environment, you need to check like if the workflow is like secure, compliant, and those kind of like reviews. Right now, most of companies, people are actually checking one by one, but we can like streamline the process itself by using like AI. AI will just review the workflow, assess the risk behind the workflow, and people can just like take a look at it and like approve or disapprove, right? So those type of stuff, like we already have it, and like yeah, we're streamlining the process. So eventually the cost of building like workflows and the time that you need to spend building workflows will be like very short. So after YC, we started open couple of positions. So we have like founding engineer, we have founding designer, we have 4 deploy engineers. It's actually on our landing page. There is a career page you can take a look. And also we have YC job posting page as well. So yeah, if someone is like interested in like working like early stage startup, like vibe coding tool for workflow automation, yeah, please contact us.
All right. You're going to hear first.
Yep.
Thank you. This was such a
Thank you so
fascinating
much.
conversation. I can't wait to see how the platform evolves as more organizations adopt AI-driven
Hmm.
workflows. And
Hmm.
to everyone listening, we'll be back soon with more founders, more products, and more behind the scenes conversations. Okay. Well, thank you for tuning in to 8 Spotlight. And thank you, Shoya.
Thank you, Samantha.